I love Jesus, but hate religion. Hey folks, jumping on for this week's questionable quotes. I actually went live on our Facebook page with this first, so check out Focus Press on Facebook. And if you want to get these live, I'm going to be doing them Wednesdays around lunchtime for the questionable quotes. I'm going to try and do the same with Cultural Breakdown, so make sure you're following us over there. But if not, as always, the videos will be going up on YouTube as well. And if you don't have time for the videos, once again, the Church Reset podcast feed where you can catch the audio, listen to it on the go, or as you're going about your house, doing your chores, whatever the case may be. So make sure you're plugged into whichever is the most convenient for you, the podcast feed, the Facebook page, or here on YouTube. Now that I've kind of established what we're doing here, let's get into this week's questionable quote. That about religion. I love Jesus but hate religion. This was extremely popular to hear about 10 years ago, but the remnants are still around. You still hear it from time to time about religion really being a bad thing, about the idea that God doesn't want us to be religious and that Christianity is something different than religion. And so, interestingly, this is something that was Tim Keller, big name Presbyterian minister in New York City, used to talk about this all the time. He passed away a year or two ago, but he had tweets like this about religion. I obey, therefore I am accepted. Gospel, I am accepted, therefore I obey. And so setting, again, Christianity and the gospel against religion. And a number of years ago, I actually tweeted him about this and said, why are you repeating Jefferson Bethke's false dichotomy between religion and Christianity? And so I was referring to this video, as you can see there, 35 million views 12 years ago, why I hate religion but love Jesus. And it was a kind of a spoken word slam poetry, one of those cringy things people used to do back then. But again, 35 million views, and the man went on to write books with the same title and build a whole career about hating religion, and it was wildly popular. And so I asked Keller, why are you repeating this? And he got back to me and said, actually, he stole it from me. And so I looked into it, and Keller had been writing these things for years. Quotes like, how religion works: if I obey, then God will love and accept me. The gospel, I'm loved and accepted, therefore I wish to obey. He also said, religious people find God useful, Christians find God beautiful. And so what he's trying to get at is some good ideas about God's love and acceptance of us and all that, and he's placing it against religion, like religion is the bad side of it. And yet, in James chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, we have that word religion used a few times. If anyone thinks himself to be religious and yet does not bridle his tongue but deceives his own heart, this man's religion is worthless. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. What you see there is religion used. It can be positive or negative. It depends on what you're doing with your religion. And so if you think you're religious, but you don't have, you've got a worthless religion there if your tongue is not bridled. On the other hand, pure, undefiled religion, there can be good religion. It's taking care of other people, visiting orphans and widows, and keeping oneself unstained by the world. So, is religion really a bad thing? Well, it can be good, bad, or otherwise. Going to Merriam-Webster, it just means a personal, set, or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices, the service and worship of God or the supernatural, commitment or devotion to religious faith or observance. A cause, principle, or system of beliefs held to with ardor and faith. Again, all really neutral depending on what you're believing and acting on and things like that. And then the Greek-English lexicon, on that Greek word used there in James, said expression of devotion to transcendent beings. Expression of devotion to God, which God you're choosing is your religion. Pretty simple and straightforward, really not that big of a deal. So why would somebody hate religion? What are they talking about? What does it mean when they say that they hate religion? What are they going on about? Well, I think that's the important question to answer here. That's something that we have to consider in our walk with God. Is our religion good? Is it bad? Well, there's a few things they're getting at, and what you can kind of take from the Keller quote from the Bethke video is legalism. Legalism is a bad thing, and they're pointing, of course, to the Pharisees, and they would call those religious people. And you'll hear people say that the only people Jesus really went after was the religious people. Well, again, religious, there's a lot of different religious people, but the main ones were the Pharisees, the very legalistic people that had added tradition and tradition and tradition on top of the law. And so legalism was the issue. There was also the issue of hypocrisy, that they were forcing other people to do things they themselves wouldn't do. They were coming up with regulations that made them look good and ignoring other ones that they really didn't want to keep. And so there was a real hypocrisy to their religion. And so when somebody says, I'm against religion, that's what they're against, because it really comes off very hollow when a guy like Keller, who was a preacher for a mega church, says, I hate religion. Like, your whole career is based on religion, buddy. That was a little disingenuous. What he means is what he meant is that he hated legalism, hated hypocrisy, things like that. And I think that's what resonated with so many people, and why so many people say, yeah, I hate religion too. I don't want to be religious. And Jesus didn't call us to be religious and any of those things. Be against legalism, be against hypocrisy. But when we start telling people, yeah, religion is terrible, religion is dumb, you end up with this apology Christianity, that we're always apologizing to the world, always telling them, and you'll hear churches, well, we're not like any other church. We're not like the churches you've been to before. We're a different kind of church. And I know you've probably been hurt by churches before and by legalism and by hypocrisy, but what you end up with is the opposite of legalism, antinomianism. People who don't want to submit, people who don't want to commit themselves in the way that religion calls you to do. And so what ends up coming under fire and under attack is A, obedience, B, institutions and organized churches and organized religion. It's not a bad thing. Jesus' bride is the church. The church is a beautiful thing. The church is something that he cares a lot about. That's what he died for. And yet with this kind of rhetoric, we've created so many people, well, not we, but the people who push this rhetoric, have created I'm spiritual but not religious, and I come to Jesus in my own way. I don't really need to go to church on Sunday, or, well, I'll go to church sometimes when it feels right, but I'm not going to commit, or they can't tell me to do that, and if they tell me I got to obey in some certain way, I'm just going to go to the church down the road, and you end up with disobedient, self-driven, self-worshipping people, honestly, lovers of self, as Paul told Timothy, is what would come out of that. And so when we say we hate religion, we need to be careful with the kinds of things we're saying. We need to think about the ideas behind that and start using religion positively. I think this is kind of a marketing kind of thing, and I don't want to treat the church like a business, but the branding that we have when we say, man, I hate religion, religion's terrible, religion is this, that, and the other thing, would you come to church with me? People don't see the distinction there. It all looks the same to them. It all looks like legalism. It all looks like rule keeping to them, because we're called to obedience. We're trying to set a standard, and you're going to go one of two ways. Either you're going to push obedience, and people are going to say, well, you were lying to me about the anti-religious thing, or you're going to push less and less obedience. You're going to become more and more compromising to show people, man, we're not religious here. We're a different kind of church. And that's how you end up with churches with pride flags out front, churches that won't touch on cultural issues, that sins that are in the pews, churches that won't really confront anything and change anything, because we're trying to prove how not religious we are. Well, when we look at Jesus' words, I want to finish with this. There in Matthew 23, when he was going after the Pharisees for their legalism, for their hypocrisy, he said something really interesting in 23:23. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier provisions of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. But notice this last phrase. But these are the things you should have done without neglecting the others. He's not doing an either or. It's not Jesus or religion here. He's saying justice, mercy, and faithfulness with your religion. Same thing David did in Psalm 51 to say, I know you don't desire sacrifice, you desire a broken and contrite heart. I'll give you my heart, and then I'll go make the sacrifice. It is both things. It is the religious practice and the internal relationship with God. You'll see that dichotomy as well, relationship and religion. It's both things. We have to have both things. Jesus, who is meek and lowly, and his yoke is easy and his burden is light, is also the Jesus that says, take up your cross and follow him and die to self. You have to have all sides of these, not pick one or the other. Not be legalistic, but also not be antinomian, not be anti-religious, not fall into this false dichotomy that's been cast for us. So that's this week's questionable quotes. As always, if you don't have time to watch the videos, be sure to subscribe to the Church Reset podcast feed. It's on every major podcast player, where you can just catch audio versions of these while you're on the go, as well as with my articles and other content I put out. We got a lot of stuff coming on the Focus Press YouTube channel, the Memology shorts, the Think Deeper shorts, our podcasts, all of that. So be sure you're subscribed there. If you're watching this live on Facebook, leave a like and a comment, say hello, and appreciate you taking the time to watch. I will be back next week with another questionable quotes next Wednesday.